Learning to jibe when you're wing foiling is like taking the training wheels off your bicycle. You're officially free to ride on foil, go upwind, and spend more time on your board and less time in the water recovering from your falls. But before we get to that incredible place of consistent jibes, we need to learn the proper skills and technique to master the jibe. In this video, I'm going to break down the simple steps to perfecting your jibe and include some tips that were the difference makers for me when I was struggling to get my jibes down. Let's get into it. Hey guys, Blaise here with West Coast Wing Foil. Thanks for tuning into the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the jibe. For some people, it's the most beautiful tool in your arsenal to unlock endless riding without all the energy and frustration of falling in the water. It took me a lot longer than I expected to get jibing down packed. After several sessions of trying, I was able to get jibes completed, but I was stuck between this 40 to 60% completion rate. I'd complete one jibe and then fall in the next. But then one magical day, and I remember it because it was extremely windy out, it was blowing like 30 knots, my jibes just clicked and came together. I had a sequence of about 10 jibes in a row, and before that, I probably couldn't even string between 2 or 3 on a regular basis. From that point on, my wing foiling elevated to the next level, and my riding just became so much easier. Completing jibes allows you to spend way less energy getting back on your board and back up onto foil. When you stay up on your foil for longer periods of time, you spend way less energy compared to constantly pulling yourself up out of the water onto your board and then exerting extra energy to then pump back up onto foil. But enough about me, let's teach you the proper way to jibe and share all the tips I wish I knew when I was starting out. So the jibe direction I always recommend starting with is having your most comfortable foot forward. I'm most comfortable in a regular stance, which means my left foot is in the front and my right foot is in the back. I'm riding along on my heel edge in this stance. I found that breaking down a full jibe sequence into smaller steps really helped me to understand what I needed to do and helped me identify what I was doing wrong when I was struggling. There are 5 basic steps to completing a jibe. First, you initiate your turn edging the nose of your board downwind. Then you drop your sail with your back hand. As your turn continues, you grab the top of the strut on your wing with your free hand. Then you switch the other hand to the back strut of your wing, and then transfer your weight to be more on your toe edge to complete your turn. The additional step will be to do a foot switch, but I'll get into that a little bit more later. So let's dive into these steps a little bit deeper, and I want to share the main areas where a lot of people go wrong and that delays their progress from being able to complete a jibe on a regular basis. So the first part of the jibe involves transferring your weight off of your heel edge and directing your board downwind. This is something that most people should be able to handle if you're up and riding on foil. You're easing into the turn and you can grab a bit of extra wind from your sail to help provide some extra force to pull you around into that turn. It's almost like you're pulling on a rope to start your turn. The full turn is basically 180 degrees, maybe a bit more depending on how high you're cutting up wind. Once you've initiated the turn, you'll release your back hand. As your turn continues, your hand sequence is to grab the top strut of your wing with the hand that will become your leading hand and switch the hand that was at the top to the back strut of your wing. When you're first learning to jibe, this isn't too hard to do on your own, but it takes a lot of attention to think about what you're doing with your hands while trying to keep your foil level, transfer your weight at the right time, maintain balance, and do all the other things that are required to have a smooth jibe. So something that is really going to help you with your jibe is to practice this hand maneuver on the beach so it becomes super automatic and you don't have to spend all that extra attention to think about what your hands need to do while all the other stuff's going on at the same time. This way, you're going to have a lot more capacity to focus on your feet and your weight distribution, which is where a lot of people go wrong during the jibe. A really common mistake that wing foilers learning to jibe make is that they just feel like there's too much going on and they don't know what to concentrate on. They end up attempting to concentrate on everything at once, and the result is somewhat of a messy execution of each of the components. So go and practice your movements, especially your hand movements, but maybe the full jive while you're on the beach. That's going to free up your capacity to think about the important elements and have some of the more simpler things just be automatic as you're doing your jibe maneuver. So while you're doing your wing position shift, at the same time, you're timing your weight transfer from leaning slightly towards your heel edge to leaning slightly towards your toe edge. What I see a lot of people do, and I was definitely a culprit of this when I was starting out, is to anticipate the turn. And when you turn your body, you're not transferring your weight onto your heel edge. If you notice that you're falling off the heel side of your board, it means that you're not transferring your weight towards your toe enough during your turn. I really struggled with this, and what I found helped me a lot is instead of trying to complete the full jibe in one swoop, you can break down the jibe into two parts. The first part is getting to a straight downwind position with your weight evenly distributed on your board. Then, once you're comfortable getting to that downwind position with even weight distributed on your board, you can slowly roll your weight towards your toe edge and work on completing your turn. By focusing on the first part of the turn, it helps you get to an even weight distribution on your board and forces you to work on the timing of your weight transfer. You can be leaning forward to help get the turn going, but still have your weight on the back edge of your board. This is because you're focused on your upper body instead of focusing on the pressure that your weight is delivering onto your board. Always remember that the pressure on your board is what's going to be driving the foil into the direction that you're leaning. So on the first part of the jibe, when you're starting your turn, release your backhand of the wing and focus on getting your weight nice and even on your board, pointing straight downwind. Something that's going to help you is to not rush the turn. Take the turn nice and slow and give yourself time to ride downwind as much as you need and focus on being nice and balanced on your board. Don't try to continue your turn until you're nice and balanced, facing straight downwind, and your weight distribution is even. Once you feel balanced, grab the front strut with the hand you released and move your front hand to the back strut. At the same time, you're transferring your weight to your toe edge to initiate the second part of the turn. As soon as you have both hands on your wing and you start catching wind, the wing and the wind will really help pull you around to complete your turn. You can almost use it as a leverage point to pull yourself into that turn. I just want to emphasize one more time that getting to a comfortable downwind position and having a smooth quarter turn at the start is basically 90% of the jibe. Once you get that perfected, the remaining steps just kind of fall into place. When you have your weight evenly distributed, all you have to do is put a little bit of pressure on your toe edge for that remaining part of the turn to initiate. Then, as soon as your wing comes up, it's going to help you get some purchase to pull yourself around into the rest of the turn. The reason that two-part turn really helped me is because it gets your timing down, and during that downwind transition period, you have a few extra seconds to get your weight right and adjust your timing for that second phase of the jibe to go smoothly. If you were slightly off during that beginning section of the turn, then you're going to have that time to just adjust, make sure you're set before you start that next phase and you don't overcompensate or go further in the wrong direction. If there is one thing that you take away from this video, it's to not rush the turn and get balanced riding downwind before completing your turn. Once you start having some success completing that turn, the next part of the jibe that becomes a bit of a challenge is going to be riding on your toe side. Riding toe side definitely feels uncomfortable at first because your body is kind of torqued in an awkward position. You're trying to face upwind, but your wing is on the downwind side of you and it's kind of pulling you downwind and causing you to cross your body, and everything sort of feels unnatural. One tip that I can suggest when you're working on riding on your toe side is to point slightly downwind and not worry so much about cutting upwind. This just takes the pressure off that torque position and provides a bit more stability while you're learning. At this point in time, you have the choice to keep riding on your toe side or do a foot switch. I suggest working on both. When you become a better rider, riding toe side is often preferred for riding waves and having more fun with your turns, but it's definitely more difficult to ride upwind on your toe side, and if I'm doing any sort of longer cuts upwind, I'll always do a foot switch because it's just way more comfortable to ride in that position. So let's talk about the foot switch. Full disclosure, you're going to have some awkward falls, and there's definitely a bit of a learning curve when it comes to switching your feet and for your brain to understand what's going on. This is another good sequence to practice on the beach so that you're less focused on the individual steps involved when you're on the water. The steps involved for the foot switch are quite simple. First, you're going to be bringing yourself on an upward trajectory on your foil so it's rising up out of the water. Then simply put your back foot next to your front foot and move your front foot to the back of your board. It's important to move your feet in that order, otherwise you're going to just shoot up out of the water and your board's going to be flying out in front of you. Don't feel too rushed when you're doing the foot switch. Because your foil is on an upward trajectory rising up out of the water, when you have both feet on the front of your board, it's just transitioning your foil from an upward trajectory towards a flat and then downward trajectory. This gives you that extra time to complete your foot switch while your foil is transitioning from the upward trajectory into that downward trajectory. There are a couple of things that you can do to make the foot switch even easier. Before you've done anything, simply start edging your feet closer together, as close as you possibly can, while you're still riding comfortably on your toe edge. This is going to allow your feet to travel a much shorter distance when it comes time to do that foot switch. You've got a nice balancing point on your board, and then you're going to do a much smaller travel when you're doing the foot switch. Because your feet are going to be traveling a much shorter distance when it comes time to do that foot switch, there's going to be a less of a margin for error. Some people like doing a jump switch, which involves their feet just quickly sliding and changing positions from the one stance to the other, but I really feel that the step forward and then step back technique is much easier and smoother for people that are learning to jibe. The key to your foot switch is timing. You're timing your foil to be rising out of the water and then having your 2 feet and the weight on the front of your board. This causes your foil to start diving, but by the time it's transitioned to flat and just started its descent, your feet are back to the balanced position where you can then control your foil's lift easily. The last piece of the jibe is then being able to do your second turn, turning the other side. I always recommend avoiding starting a jibe with your less comfortable stance. So if I'm a regular rider, then I'm going to be more comfortable riding with my left foot forward. I'm not going to start a jibe with my right foot forward. Instead, if I'm riding with my right foot forward as I'm crossing the wind, I'll switch my feet first and then complete my jibe. This is going to be exponentially easier than trying to jibe in your weaker stance. This goes without saying for the other way. If I'm riding with my left foot forward, I'm going to complete my jibe with my left foot forward and then switch my feet after the jibe's complete. Completing your jibe from your toe edge in your dominant stance is actually a lot easier, in my opinion, than going from your heel to toe edge. It's more difficult getting to a toe side riding position, but once you're there, jibing out of it is actually easier. All the same principles apply with transferring your weight to a neutral position and aiming your board downwind. Only this time, you're going to be more comfortable completing the turn because you'll be riding into your dominant stance, and your whole body, because it's torqued when you're riding on that toe side, is going to be feeling like it's releasing and become a lot more comfortable riding out of the jibe. A really common mistake people make when they're jibing is to not transfer their weight when they're turning from one edge of their board to the other. When you're on your toe side and you have that torqued feeling with your wing pulling you in the opposite way that your body is facing, it's more natural when you start your turn to transfer your weight and go into the direction the wind is pulling you. This is the opposite when you're doing the jibe that I demonstrated in the first scenario, where you're going from a comfortable stance into that torqued crosswind position. So on the toe side jibe, start your turn, release your back hand and hold your wing above your head. Bring your board to a position facing straight downwind while you balance your weight evenly between your heel and toe edge. Then grab your wing at the front with your free hand, shift the front hand to the back, and roll your weight towards your heel edge while you start catching wind to bring you around the rest of the way. If you're having trouble with your jibe and you find that you're falling in a lot, really pay attention to which way you're falling off your board. This is going to tell you what you're doing wrong and help you to correct the mistake that you're making. On a heel edge jibe, if you're falling off on your heel edge side, it probably means that you need to transfer more weight onto your toe edge during your turn. And this is vice versa. If you're falling on your toe edge, it's probably because you're transferring your weight too early and you're kind of overcommitting to that turn. Now, the most important thing that I can say about learning to jibe is to stick with it. It's really hard to train your body to get the timing down perfectly every time you jibe. I know I would get super frustrated when I could jibe the majority of the time, but I was still having falls every 3 to 4 jibes. So stick with it, and just like learning to foil, the more time that you spend on the water practicing your jibe, the better that you're going to get, and it's going to feel more and more natural as you progress. Even if you feel like you're progressing slowly or you're just falling so much that you're not progressing at all, I guarantee you are learning to transfer your weight, to balance on your board, and one day it's just going to click and it's all going to make sense and it's going to feel super natural and you're going to unlock that amazing ability to jibe on a consistent basis. One additional tip I wanted to suggest is to learn to jibe in stronger wind conditions. Stronger wind is going to give you more time to complete your turn. When you point downwind, you'll actually have a longer gliding period to prepare yourself for that weight transfer and transition to the opposite edge of your board. Stronger wind actually gives you a bit of a push, even when your wing is flagging. So it helps to just give you some extra glide while you're slowly putting all the pieces together. Having a foil with a lower stall speed will also help you to just give you more time to complete that turn. So if you're struggling, consider trying a larger foil to give yourself more time at a slower speed to complete that turn. I have a complete foil resource that shares all the important aspects of a foil and gives you recommendations on the size and shape of the foil that best fits your riding style, weight, and riding conditions. You can download this resource at westcoastwingfoil.com. And that is it for this jibing video. I hope you found this video helpful. Wingfoiling is a huge passion of mine, and I just love sharing that passion with others who feel the same way about this awesome sport. If you are in the market for any wingfoil gear, make sure to check out westcoastwingfoil.com. And that is it for this video on how to jibe. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, feel free to check out our website, westcoastwingfoil.com, for more wingfoil tutorials and gear. We have a ton of great wingfoil products like repair kits, bags, and other accessories. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out on Facebook or on Instagram. You can also just comment on any of my YouTube videos. I love to hear where other wingfoilers are at in their wingfoil journey and see what additional resources or videos could help you along your wingfoil journey. We also have a private West Coast Wingfoil Facebook group where beginners and progressing riders come together and we share resources, have discussions all about learning to wingfoil and progressing as a rider. If that's something that you think would help you progress, just search for West Coast Wingfoil on Facebook, and I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks so much for watching this video, guys. Wishing you good wins, lots of awesome riding, and seeing you out on the water.